My son mocked me on a family trip, so I bought his one-way ticket home. Yeah, you read that right. One comment, one laugh too loud, one line that went too far. And I made the call, not in anger, not to prove a point, but because some lines, when crossed, don't get erased with an apology. It happened in a cabin nestled deep in the Smoky Mountains, a trip that was supposed to be healing, a weekend of laughter, bonfires, and making up for time lost. Instead, it became the moment I realized my own son didn't see me, not the real me, not the woman who raised him, sacrificed for him, stayed up night after night just to keep the lights on. He saw a punchline, a joke, someone to roll his eyes at when his cousins were watching. It stung, but not in the way you'd think, not because it was mean, but because it was easy. I sat there, pretending to sip my coffee, while his words echoed louder than the crackling fireplace behind me. Yeah, well, you know how Mom is, always making things about herself. The room laughed. Light, harmless, right? Except it wasn't. Because that one sentence? That sentence carried 17 years of late-night studying, job juggling, and guilt-heavy parenting. It was a public slap dressed as a joke, and I wasn't going to let it slide, not this time. Now, before we get deeper, let me introduce myself. I'm Grace, 52, divorced, single mom of one sarcastic teenage boy named Dylan, and a grandma in training, as my best friends like to joke. They say I'm the woman who always gives second chances. Maybe they were right, until that trip, because something changed. The way he looked at me, the tone he used, the approval he sought from others at my expense. It wasn't just a bad mood. It was disrespectful, casual, dismissive, public. And if I let it pass, I knew it would become his normal. And worse, mine. So I made a call. I bought him a one-way ticket back home. Same cabin, same trip, same weekend, but everything shifted after that. This isn't a story about payback. It's about waking up, about realizing how easily love turns into entitlement when we let them forget what we've done to keep them standing. This is my story, not of revenge, but of reclaiming my voice and reminding my son who I am. So if you've ever felt walked over, laughed off, or dismissed like you were just mom and nothing more, buckle in, because this story, it's for every woman who stayed silent one time too many. The cabin trip wasn't just a getaway. It was my peace offering, my olive branch to a teenage son who'd been pulling away, drifting further into eye rolls and one-word answers. I thought maybe the mountains would soften us, that getting him away from the Wi-Fi and his snarky group chat might make space for a real conversation. I booked the cabin, packed the board games, downloaded a playlist of his favorite old songs, the ones we used to scream in the car back when he still thought I was cool. This wasn't just a vacation. It was my Hail Mary. We hadn't taken a real trip since the divorce. Just me and me, no lawyers, no court dates, no awkward weekend swaps. I wanted him to see I was still me, still fun, still the mom who used to make Batman pancakes and dance like an idiot in the kitchen on Saturdays. But here's the thing about teenage boys. They don't tell you when they stop needing you. They just drift. Until one day you're sitting beside them in the car, and the silence is so loud it feels like a wall. Dylan used to tell me everything. Now I get fine, whatever, and a shrug. A shrug that somehow says you wouldn't get it, and you're embarrassing all in one go. Still, I had hope for this trip. It was a 4-hour drive to the cabin. Just the two of us. Windows down. I tried small talk. He stayed buried in his phone. I played our song, Shut Up and Dance by Walk the Moon. He rolled his eyes and muttered, "Cringe." By the time we pulled up to the cabin, I already felt the sting, but I shook it off. He's just moody, I told myself. Give it time. The first night, my sister Lisa and her family arrived. 3 kids, 2 dogs, and all the chaos that comes with it. Dylan lit up around them, joked, laughed, even helped bring in the bags without me asking. I saw glimpses of the boy I missed. But then, something shifted. At dinner, he started playing a different role. The guy with the snappy comebacks, the one who could win laughs by poking fun at Mom. Me. Every time I spoke, I could feel his eyes roll before he even finished chewing. He started correcting me on little things, mocking my stories, finishing my sentences with exaggerated flair to get the room laughing. He was the main act. And I was the punchline. It stung, not because it was cruel, but because it felt practiced, like he'd done it before. Like this wasn't a phase. It was who he was becoming. And I knew. If I didn't stop it here, that funny little jab would turn into a pattern. So yeah, the trip was supposed to bring us closer. Instead, it showed me exactly how far apart we'd grown. Dinner was supposed to be chill. Just family, laughter, stories, those cozy, messy conversations where everyone talks over each other and the food somehow tastes better because it's shared. But not that night. That night, Dylan came to perform. The table was full. My sister Lisa and her husband, their 3 kids, my Aunt Sharon and Granny June, who never misses a meal unless the Lord himself intervenes. And me, front and center, unaware that I'd be the featured entertainment. It started subtly. Lisa mentioned how chaotic her mornings were with 3 kids. I chuckled and said, "Trust me, even with 1 teenager, it's still a circus." Dylan, without missing a beat, smirked and said, "Yeah, except in your circus, the clown runs the show." Laughter. Not a full roar, but enough to make my stomach twist. I gave him a look. One of those, "Watch it," Mom glares. He just smirked harder, like he'd won a point. Granny June didn't even look up from her mashed potatoes. Just muttered, "Oop, he's got bark tonight." I let it slide, but it didn't stop. Every time I spoke, every time I offered a memory or a joke, Dylan twisted it, added a comment, delivered it with timing that would have killed on stage. Lisa laughed, her husband laughed, even Aunt Sharon gave a snort behind her wine glass. I sat there, smiling through it like I wasn't bleeding inside. Until it got personal. I was telling a story about when Dylan was 7, how he tried to build a treehouse out of pool noodles and duct tape. It was cute. Everyone loves that story. I barely got halfway through when he cut in, "Oh yeah, that was right before you let Dad walk out, huh?" Silence. You know that kind of silence that drops like a stone in a lake, where even the fork stopped clinking? Yeah, that. Granny June's fork froze midair. Lisa's face went white. Aunt Sharon actually gasped. My mouth opened. Nothing came out, just air, heavy, hot, humiliating. That one line shattered the air, not just because it hurt, but because it was intentional. This wasn't just a snide remark. This was a knife. A cold, calculated swing from a son who knew exactly where to aim. And what gutted me most? It wasn't that he said it. It was how proud he looked after. He leaned back, grinned, took a sip of soda like he'd just dropped the mic. That was the moment I knew something had to change. Because if I let that slide, if I laughed it off or played the cool mom card, I was teaching him that disrespect was funny, that taking jabs at me was acceptable, even entertaining. No. This wasn't going to be his stage. Not this time. The second we stepped out of Lisa's cabin, the night hit different. Crisp mountain air, stars scattered like confetti. But all I could hear was the echo of his voice. "That was right before you let Dad walk out, huh?" A dagger, disguised as a joke. I didn't say a word on the walk back. Not one. Just the crunch of gravel beneath our boots and my heartbeat pounding louder than any forest owl could compete with. Dylan trailed behind me, earbuds in, like nothing had happened. Like he hadn't just turned dinner into a TED Talk on disrespect. Inside the cabin, I finally broke. "Take them out," I snapped, pointing to his ears. He blinked like I'd short-circuited. "Whoa, chill." "Now, Dylan." He pulled them out slowly, a smirk tugging at the corner of his mouth. "Look, if you're mad about dinner," I cut him off. "No, you don't get to play casual right now." "What did you say back there? That wasn't a joke. That was a hit job." He rolled his eyes. "Oh my God, it's not that deep." Wrong answer. I stepped closer, not yelling. Worse, I was calm, scary calm. You embarrassed me in front of my entire family. You mocked my life, my choices, everything I've sacrificed for a cheap laugh. He scoffed, arms crossed. It's not like they disagreed. There it was again, that smugness, like he had me pinned under his thumb, like he knew I'd never really do anything about it. And maybe that's on me. Maybe I'd let too much slide. Maybe I wanted so badly to be the cool parent, the open door, no rules, best friend mom, that I forgot he still needed boundaries, consequences. But in that moment, all of that changed. I picked up my phone, opened the airline app, and I booked it, one-way ticket, the next morning, 7:30 a.m., back home, alone. He watched me do it. Didn't believe it at first. Thought it was a bluff. "You're serious?" he said, voice cracking slightly. "You're sending me home over a joke?" "No, Dylan," I replied, locking eyes. "I'm sending you home because you've forgotten who you're talking to." He stared at me, waiting for the punchline. There wasn't one. I handed him the confirmation email, told him to pack. But the trip's not even halfway done. Exactly. And yet, somehow, you already ruined it. His shoulders tensed. Anger flashed across his face, but I could see it, just underneath, the doubt. The shock. The reality that for once, Mom wasn't backing down. I didn't yell, didn't cry, didn't beg for an apology. I just walked into the other room, closed the door, and let silence do what words couldn't. Morning came fast. No birds chirping, no sunbeams through the window. Just cold silence and the low hum of a heater that somehow felt louder than Dylan's voice the night before. I was up before the alarm. Didn't sleep much, not from guilt, no. From resolve. Actions had consequences, and today he was going to learn. Dylan's bag was half-zipped on the couch. The sweatshirt I bought him last Christmas dangled from the side like a white flag. He shuffled out of the bedroom, hoodie on, eyes puffy. Didn't say anything at first. Just stood there, looking at me, like he was hoping I'd change my mind. I didn't. "Car's warming up," I said, sipping coffee that had long gone cold. "I'll drop you at the terminal." He blinked slowly. "You're really doing this?" "I already did." For a second, I saw the kid he used to be, 8 years old, holding my hand at the airport, scared to fly alone. Now? 18, standing 6 inches taller than me, but lost in a way no map could fix. He sat on the armrest, fingers tapping the zipper on his bag. "Look, I didn't mean it the way it came out." "That's the thing, Dylan," I said, putting my cup down. "You did mean it, and you've meant things like that for a while now." He exhaled hard through his nose. "I was just trying to be funny. You know, like family dinner awkward funny. Except you weren't funny. You were cruel." That landed. His eyes dropped. For the first time, he didn't have a comeback. "I let too many things slide, Dylan. I kept telling myself, he's just being a teenager. But no, what you were being was entitled." He swallowed. Once, then nodded. "Okay?" "Okay?" I asked, genuinely surprised. He stood, grabbed his bag. "Yeah, I'll go." We walked out to the car in silence. The air was sharp and heavy. Each step felt final. When we reached the terminal, I pulled up to the curb. Dylan opened the door, but paused. "Hey," he said, not looking at me. "I guess I needed this." "Yeah," I said, hands gripping the wheel. "Me too." He turned, met my eyes. "Will you still pick me up next week?" I raised an eyebrow. "If you come back different, more aware, then yeah, I'll be there." He gave a tiny nod. Then he left. No hug, no dramatic farewell, just a kid and a carry-on walking into the wake-up call life had just handed him. I sat there long after he disappeared inside. The seat beside me is empty, but my chest, lighter. Not because I'd won, but because for the first time in years, I felt like I'd finally shown him the real me. Not the mom who folds, but the one who teaches. The minute I walked back into the cabin, I could feel it. Not just the temperature shift, though someone had definitely cracked a window out of spite, but the tension. It was thick, like walking into a courtroom right after the verdict. Aunt Linda was by the kitchen island, arms crossed, her signature judgment face loaded and ready. "Where's Dylan?" she asked. Not even a good morning? "On a flight back," I said flatly, tossing my keys into the dish by the door. Gasps, literal gasps. You'd think I had just confessed to a crime. Uncle Pete nearly choked on his bacon. "You what?" "I bought him a one-way ticket home," I repeated, slower this time, because apparently plain English wasn't landing. Linda scoffed, turning toward my mother, who, by the way, had been suspiciously silent. "That's extreme, don't you think?" "Nope." I poured myself a fresh cup of coffee, calm as a saint. "I think mocking your own mother at dinner is extreme." Cousin Rachel piped in, all faux concern and low-key condescension. "But he's just a kid. He was probably joking." "Rachel, he's 18, I cut her off. "And what he said wasn't a joke. It was public humiliation served with a side of mashed potatoes." Silence. They weren't expecting that version of me. Not the doormat. Not the pushover who laughs things off. Not the don't rock the boat mom. They got the woman who'd finally had enough. My mom finally broke her silence, voice softer than usual. "Sweetheart, did something else happen? You seemed distant last night." "Distant? Try holding back a tidal wave of frustration while everyone laughed at your expense." I met her eyes. "Yeah, something happened. He crossed a line he's been tiptoeing for years. And I decided that line mattered." Linda shook her head, not in sympathy, disapproval. "He's your son, Sarah. You don't send your kid away like that." I leaned in slightly, voice low but firm. "And what's worse, sending him away for a wake-up call? Or letting him grow into a man who thinks it's okay to disrespect women, especially the one who raised him?" Boom. That one landed. Hard. They didn't have a comeback for that. Just exchanged awkward glances and pretended to sip cold coffee. I wasn't looking for applause. But I was done letting people guilt-trip me into silence. Dylan needed to face the mirror. And maybe, just maybe, so did the rest of them. I wasn't going to raise a son who thought love meant leniency. I was raising a man who understood respect. And sometimes, respect starts with consequences. 3 days, 3 painfully quiet days, no calls, no texts, not even a "you ruined my life" voicemail. The silence was almost louder than his words that night. Everyone at the cabin walked on eggshells like I'd detonated some emotional nuke. Aunt Linda had officially retired from passive aggressiveness and moved full-time into active judgment. My mother, bless her, was trying to keep the peace by overfeeding everyone, while I pretended not to notice the constant side-eyes and whispers. Then, it happened. I was alone on the deck, nursing my second coffee, watching the fog lift from the trees like smoke from an old fire. That's when my phone buzzed. Dylan. For a second, I just stared at the screen. Then it buzzed again. And again. 3 calls. Back to back. I answered on the 4th ring. "Hey," I said, trying to sound calm, not like my heart had just started sprinting laps in my chest. "What the hell, Mom?" No hello, no "are you okay?" Just straight-up rage. I held the phone away from my ear for a second. Deep breath. "Glad you landed safely," I said. His breath was shaky, tight. I could tell he'd been holding this in, building up a whole case against me in his head. "You sent me home, like a child, in front of the entire family." I didn't flinch. "You acted like one." Silence. "I was joking," he snapped. "No, Dylan, you were mocking. There's a difference, and you know it." He scoffed, bitter and defensive. "You embarrassed me." I leaned against the railing. "You embarrassed me, Dylan, in front of everyone. You think I didn't feel humiliated when you rolled your eyes at my job, made fun of my business like it's a punchline? You think your words didn't cut just because they came with a smirk?" Another silence. But this one felt different. He was listening now, even if he didn't like what he heard. You've been fed this idea that what I do isn't enough, I continued, that unless I'm in a suit, in some office, I've failed. And you've swallowed that garbage whole. I didn't mean it like that, he muttered. It just came out. I almost laughed. Things only come out when they've been sitting inside too long. There it was, the raw part, the real part. He was quiet again. Then, I didn't know it hurt you that much. I blinked hard, finally. I know you're figuring things out. I get it, I said gently. But here's the deal, if you want to be treated like a man, then act like one. Men own their mistakes. They don't bury them in sarcasm and pretend it's all a joke. He didn't respond immediately. Then, in a small voice I hadn't heard in years, I'm sorry, Mom. There it was. No theatrics, no long speech, just honest, unvarnished truth. And it was enough.
I love you, Dylan, I said, voice catching, but I'm not afraid to call you out, because that's what love looks like when it's done right. He let out a long breath. Yeah, I get it. It wasn't a movie ending. No violins, no hug through the phone moment. But it was real. He saw it. He saw me. He came back. 4 days after that phone call, the one that cracked the armor just enough, Dylan showed up on the porch like nothing happened. No grand entrance, no apology banner. Just him, hoodie up, duffel slung over his shoulder, a little less fire in his eyes. I opened the door, leaned against the frame, arms crossed. You forget something? He gave me a sheepish half-smile. Yeah, apparently, my dignity. I didn't laugh, but my lip twitched. You bringing it back with you or still searching? He shrugged. Depends. Is there coffee inside? I stepped aside and let him in. The cabin was half empty. Aunt Linda had already left early, probably couldn't handle the family drama without her signature passive remarks. Grandma was napping, and the cousins were out hiking, giving us the rare gift of privacy. Dylan dropped his bag near the door and looked around like he was seeing it for the first time. The place got quieter. Yeah, drama tends to suck the noise out of a room, I said, motioning him toward the kitchen. As the coffee brewed, he hovered awkwardly near the counter, not sitting, not talking, just thinking. I handed him a mug. He took it without a word. Then he said it. The thing I didn't expect, the thing that flipped the script again. You were right to send me home. I raised an eyebrow. I was mad, humiliated, but after a few days at Grandma's by myself, watching her play solitaire and talk to her cat like it's royalty, I had a lot of time to think. I smiled. Lady Whiskers has that effect on people. He took a sip. You ever feel like you don't realize you're becoming someone you don't like until it's already too loud to ignore? That hit me. Hard. Every parent does, I said quietly. He looked down at his cup, voice softer now. I think I started resenting you because you weren't the kind of mom they showed in movies. You weren't at every school assembly with cookies and applause, but you were always there. After. During. Quietly saving everything in the background. He looked up. That's not nothing. For a moment, all I could do was stare at him. This boy, no young man, was finally seeing beyond his own story. Seeing the cost of love, the weight of sacrifice. I'm sorry for making you feel small, he said. I think I did it because I felt small. There it was. Honesty without defense, vulnerability without shame. That's the bravest thing you've said in years, I told him. He chuckled, rubbing the back of his neck. Yeah, well, don't get used to it. I tapped his cup. One brave moment earns you pancakes. But keep going and you might get bacon too. We shared a laugh. The tension cracked just enough for warmth to pour in. Later that afternoon, he joined the cousins on a trail hike. Came back muddy, sweaty, grinning. He even helped Grandma with dinner. No sarcasm, no snide remarks, just effort. That night, we all sat around the fire. Dylan threw in logs like he was reclaiming a piece of his childhood. Clara made some dry comment about miracles happening, and for once, Dylan didn't bite back. Instead, He looked at me. A real, solid look. Like he knew what he almost lost. And he wasn't going to take it for granted again. The night felt too calm. That eerie kind of calm where you know a storm's about to rip the sky open. Dinner was roast chicken, garlic potatoes, and a tension that cut cleaner than the steak knives. Grandma hummed softly while serving, blissfully unaware, or pretending to be, that the air had thickened like fog. Dylan sat across from me. Clean shirt, decent attitude, even helped set the table. The cousins joked. Clara talked too much. And for a second, I let my shoulders drop. Maybe, just maybe, we'd found our rhythm again. Then Daniel happened. Fork halfway to his mouth, he decided it was the perfect time for commentary. "So, Dylan," he said, tones slick as melted butter, "your little solo retreat gives you time to reflect on how real life works? Or are you still on the emotional growth field trip?" The table paused, just for a second. Dylan's eyes flicked to mine, calm, controlled. But I knew that look, the same one his father used to wear before he snapped.
"I think I've got a better handle on life than most people playing house and pretending it's fulfillment," Dylan said, voice even. Boom. The cousins stiffened. Clara blinked. Daniel's face soured like spoiled wine. "Excuse me?" "You're excused," Dylan replied, slicing his potato calmly. "You talk a lot about success, Uncle Daniel, but every time I look at you, you just seem tired and angry." I nearly choked on my water. Even Grandma paused mid-scoop. Daniel laughed, that cold, brittle kind. "And what? You think your mom taught you how to be better than me?" Dylan didn't flinch. "No, she taught me how to survive, how to show up, how to hold it together when the people around you are busy tearing it all down." Now all eyes were on him. He didn't stop. She worked nights, double shifts, missed sleep and meals. She made magic out of nothing while still showing up to every game, every spelling bee, every midnight meltdown. He turned to Clara, voice lowering. "You once called her directionless. I call that loyalty, purpose, real purpose." No one breathed. Then he dropped the hammer. "You all spent years looking down on her, mocking her choices, but not one of you would have lasted a week in her shoes. You're not strong enough." Silence. Real, painful silence. Daniel's jaw clenched, but he had nothing. Not a word, not a comeback. Just that stunned, red-faced look people get when they realize they're not the smartest one in the room anymore. Clara looked down at her plate. Even Grandma, bless her heart, whispered, "Damn." I wanted to speak, say something, anything, but I couldn't. My throat was locked. My hands were trembling, not from fear, from pride. Because he saw it now. All the invisible battles, all the nights I cried in silence, all the sacrifices hidden behind tired eyes and grocery coupons. He saw it. And for the first time, they did too. Dylan stood up slowly. "If you'll excuse me, I've got better things to do than sit here and pretend this is a healthy environment." He left, calm, unbothered, but powerful, and for the first time in a very, very long time. So did I. The room stayed quiet long after Dylan left. Not just quiet, gutted. You know when someone throws truth like a grenade and walks out before the dust settles? That was Dylan. Clara fiddled with her napkin like it owed her money. Daniel suddenly found his fork very interesting. Even the cousins weren't brave enough to break the silence. Only the ticking of Grandma's old wall clock dared to speak. I just sat there, stunned. Every part of me is buzzing. Equal parts pride and grief. Pride, because my son finally spoke up. Grief, because it had to come to that. And then, the impossible happened. Daniel cleared his throat. Twice. I didn't know he felt that way, he said, voice oddly small for a man who usually filled rooms with ego. I raised an eyebrow but said nothing. He's intense, he added, passionate, like you. There it was, his version of an apology, weak, wobbly, wrapped in ego. Daniel, I said calmly, You don't have to like me, but you will respect me. And next time, don't put my son in a position where he has to defend his own mother like that." He swallowed hard. "No comeback this time." Clara glanced at me, then back down. "I never thought about it like that," she said quietly. "You made choices we wouldn't have. But maybe we just didn't have the courage to." That one hit me sideways. Because behind all her Pinterest perfect comments and manicured critiques, I think that was the first real thing she ever said to me. I nodded. Just once. Grandma, who'd been silent through it all, finally looked up from her plate. "You know what your problem is?" she said, voice soft but sharp as glass. "You confuse security with success. You think being comfortable means being right. That's why you've never understood her." Everyone turned toward her. "She wasn't trying to impress you. She was trying to raise a boy who knew how to feel, and she did, because that boy, he's more of a man than half the people at this table." Boom, Granny mic drop. Nobody argued, nobody could. She reached for my hand under the table and gave it a gentle squeeze. "You did good," she whispered. I saw it, even when no one else did. I blinked fast. Not gonna cry. Not at this table. But man, that hit harder than I expected. You wait your whole life for someone to see you. Not for what you gave up, but for what you gave. And in that moment, I didn't care if they clapped, apologized, or bought me flowers. I had Dylan's truth, Grandma's eyes, and for the first time in years, peace. The morning after the dinner felt weirdly still. No chaos, no clattering breakfast sounds, no sarcastic jabs or forced small talk, just quiet. I walked downstairs expecting to find Dylan scrolling on his phone or making his usual oversized bowl of cereal. But nothing. His suitcase was gone. At first I panicked. Was he that upset? Did he really just leave? Then I saw it. A folded piece of paper on the kitchen counter. My name was written in that messy, half-cursive handwriting I knew better than my own. "Mom." My stomach twisted. I sat down before I even opened it. "Mom, I know yesterday was heavy. I didn't plan to say all that. It just came out. But I'm glad it did. Because I've watched you for years. I've seen you sacrifice, stress, cry silently in your room, and still show up for me like it was the easiest thing in the world. I didn't understand it when I was little. I just thought you were there. But now I get it. You chose to be there. You chose me. Over money, over your dreams, over your own comfort. Every time. And I've been a brat lately. Acting like I'm too grown to need you. Mocking you because I thought it made me feel more independent. But it didn't. It just made me feel small. Because hurting someone who's always protected you isn't independence. It's cowardice. So, I'm sorry. That wasn't the real me. The real me sees you, Mom. And I'm proud. That's why I'm going home early. Not because I'm mad, but because I need space to process. I don't want to ruin this trip for you. You deserve joy without my teenage drama tagging along. I'll be okay. Promise. P.S. Check your Venmo. I sent the money for the ticket. You taught me to take responsibility. I'm trying to live up to that. Love, Dylan. I read it twice, then again. My hands trembled, not from sadness, but from the weight of something rare. Being seen. That letter? It was a bridge. Not just an apology, but an invitation to start fresh, as a mom and son, as equals. The kid who mocked me days ago was finally growing up, and I didn't need a room full of relatives to validate me anymore. I had his words, and they were worth more than any applause. I landed 2 days later. The trip felt incomplete, but not in a bad way. It was quieter, calmer. There was space to think about everything, about how I raised Dylan, about how easy it is to confuse teenage arrogance with actual resentment, and about how quickly love, when seen clearly, can cut through all that noise. I didn't tell him when I was landing. No dramatic, "I'm coming home" text. No ETA. I just needed to be in my own space again, breathe my air, drink from my chipped coffee mug, and sit on my couch. But when I pulled up the driveway, he was standing there, backpack slung low, hoodie half-zipped. That sheepish, lopsided grin I hadn't seen since he was 11, like he knew he was in trouble, but also knew he was already forgiven. "Hey," he said. "Hey," I replied, trying to keep it cool. But the lump in my throat was doing backflips. He stepped forward, pulling something from his bag, a small plain box, handed it to me without a word. I opened it. Inside? A cheap gold necklace, but not just any necklace, a tiny charm, a crown. I stared at it, confused. Then he said it. "You're the queen, Mom. I forgot that for a minute." That was it. No long speech, no sob story, just that line, and man, it hit. Tears, immediate, ugly ones, the kind you don't even try to hide. I pulled him in and hugged him like I was holding my 6-year-old again, not a teenager with a voice deeper than mine. He didn't pull away. He hugged me back. Tight. "I was awful," he mumbled into my shoulder. "No," I whispered. "You were just figuring it out." We stood like that on the front lawn, mother and son, broken and healed in the same breath. That night, we ordered takeout, Chinese, our comfort food, no phones, no distractions, just conversation. He asked me about the early years, when things were hard. He wanted to know how I kept going, why I never gave up. I told him the truth. I didn't have the luxury to quit. You were watching, and I wanted you to see what strength looked like. He nodded, silent, letting the weight of that land. The necklace? I wear it every day now, not because it's valuable, but because it's proof. Proof that my son, my once mocking, eye-rolling, too cool for mom son, sees me, respects me, loves me, and sometimes that's all we really want. Not perfection, not constant praise, just to be seen. I knew it wouldn't stay quiet for long. Family drama has a way of leaking faster than a cracked soda can, and in our clan, the group chat is the battlefield. A digital war zone filled with passive-aggressive gifs, fake concern, and the occasional weaponized scripture quote from Aunt Lisa. It all started with a simple message. Clara. "Wait, Dylan came home early?" That was the match. And then, boom. Uncle Brett. Someone care to explain?" Aunt Lisa. "Praying for you all, but also, was that wise? He's just a child." Cousin Mel. "Girl, you sent him home? OMG, savage, I respect it." Granny June. "Good. The kid needed a wake-up call. I love you, baby. Proud of you." Yep. Granny June. "My ride or die. That woman may bake the world's softest cinnamon rolls, but she's got the grit of a Navy SEAL." If she were on my side, I knew I was good. But it didn't stop there. Apparently, Dylan had casually mentioned the incident to his cousin Liam, who then leaked it to literally everyone. He said it like a badge of honor, Liam. Dylan got sent home by his mom, but he said it was a G move, like respect. That word again, respect. Funny how quickly tables turn when you stop trying to explain yourself and start setting the tone. I didn't respond in the chat for hours. Let them cook. Let them wonder if I was mad, embarrassed, or hiding under a blanket eating ice cream. Spoiler, I was doing none of those. I was drinking tea, watching reruns of The Office, and feeling like a damn queen. Eventually, I dropped a single message. Me. I don't raise followers. I raise men. Sometimes that requires a boarding pass. Mic drop, cue the reactions, fire emojis, gasps, and yes, even a preach from Cousin Mel. Aunt Lisa? She went silent. Probably journaling about the spirit of rebellion. Love her. What surprised me most wasn't the drama. It was the DMs that followed. Honestly, you're inspiring. I wish I had your backbone. I needed to see this as a mom. Turns out, when you stop playing defense and own your boundaries, people notice. They may not agree with you, but they respect you. And my favorite message? From Dylan. Dylan. Group chat's wild, but I'm cool with it. You did what you had to do. I get it. Short. Chill. But real. That one hit deeper than all the gossip flying around. Family will always have opinions, but at the end of the day, you're the one living your life, not their group chat fantasies. And if standing up for yourself means shaking the family tree a little, let the fruit fall. Monday morning came. No fanfare, no dramatic music, just cereal crunching, shoelaces tying, and the hum of the toaster. But something was different. Dylan wasn't dragging his feet. He wasn't rolling his eyes or slouched on the counter, doom-scrolling TikTok. He was calm, focused, actually present. "Ready?" I asked, grabbing the car keys. "Yeah," he said, backpack slung over one shoulder. "Let's go." Simple. No sarcasm, no huff. We drove in silence for a few minutes before he said, "I told Mr. Carter I'd help set up for the assembly today." Mr. Carter, the history teacher Dylan used to call the walking snooze button. I just raised an eyebrow. He chuckled. "What? I'm trying something new." And there it was, that glimmer, that quiet shift. At school, he got out of the car and didn't mumble his usual later. Instead, he turned to me and said, "Thanks for not letting me be a jerk." Then he walked off. Just like that. Not the same boy who had mocked me in front of his cousins. Not the same kid who thought he was untouchable with a passport and a Wi-Fi connection. This was someone else. Someone maturing. That week, the feedback started trickling in. An email from his teacher. "Just wanted to say Dylan showed real leadership this morning during group work. Thought you'd want to know." A text from another parent. "Dylan helped my son carry his science fair board. So sweet. Whatever you're doing, it's working." Even Granny June called me, laughing. "You rewired that boy's brain with one plane ticket. I'm about to send your Uncle Rick somewhere." I wasn't naive. I knew we'd still have our battles. He's a teen. He's human. But this was a moment. A pivot. A subtle, powerful shift in the narrative of his life. Because when you demand accountability with love, not rage, you plant something deeper than discipline. You plant integrity. And sometimes, to reach a kid's heart, you've got to surprise the hell out of them. Break the script, snap the pattern, not to punish, but to wake them up. He got the message. Loud, clear, unforgettable. It happened 3 weeks later. Not during an argument. Not during a dramatic family dinner. Just a quiet night. Pizza boxes open on the table, the TV playing some Marvel rerun in the background, and Dylan scrolling through his phone. Then out of nowhere, he looked up and said, "Mom, I get it now." I blinked. "Get what?" He shrugged. "What you did, sending me home." At first I was so pissed, but now, I think it's the first time someone didn't let me get away with acting like a complete tool. I didn't speak. Couldn't really. My throat closed up. He continued, "You didn't do it to embarrass me. You did it to stop me from becoming the kind of guy nobody wants to be around." And then, the kicker. It made me realize I don't want to be that guy either. That's when it hit me. The full circle moment. All the guilt, the self-doubt, the worry that I'd gone too far. It vanished. Because in that moment, I saw the boy I'd raised peek out from under all that teenage armor, not just learning a lesson, but owning it. He didn't hug me. Let's not get crazy. He didn't cry. Neither did I, out loud. But he stood, picked up the plates and said, "I'll clean up tonight. You worked all day." Game, set, growth. See, this wasn't just about a one-way ticket. It was about not settling. Not letting your kid drift into mediocrity masked as cool. It was about planting a flag and saying, "This family holds the line." Even when it's uncomfortable. Even when it makes you the mean mom for a week. Even when every fiber of your heart wants to rescue instead of redirect. You don't raise leaders by coddling. You raise them by challenging them. With love. With limits. With consequences that hit deep enough to make them rethink their behavior, not just avoid punishment. So if you've been there, if your kid's been acting like a stranger in your own home, if you're questioning your every move as a parent, if you're tired of eye rolls and back talk and pretending it's just a phase, let this be your reminder. You don't have to yell. You don't have to beg. But you damn sure don't have to tolerate disrespect. Sometimes, the most loving thing you can do is draw the line and make sure they feel it. Did this hit home? Share it with another parent who needs that nudge. Your story might be the reason someone stands taller today. Repost, comment, tag a friend. Let's talk real parenting. We're in this together, and tough love. It ain't just tough, it's transformational.